Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Christina, and we are the Connected in Glass podcast.
Every week, we will feature interviews with glass artists who speak to their creative processes and overcoming challenges.
These conversations are real and raw. We hope that by sharing these stories, you're able to find some connection and know that you're not alone.
We just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to our podcast. We're super passionate about this project and work for hours every week to bring you this content. So if you'd like to help support us, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/connectedinglass. Also, please consider joining our Facebook group, Connected in Glass Community, where we continue the conversations from these episodes. We'd love to hear from you.
This episode of Connected in Glass is sponsored by Diddy Clips. Diddy Clips has changed the way we film our glassblowing videos, and we're proud to be working with them.
Today, we're interviewing Matt Stefanilo. He's a glass artist currently based in Massachusetts who's been working with glass since 2006.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
We are so excited to have you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here for sure.
So let's skip the glass part of your life for a minute. You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, and what you do for fun that's not glass.
Okay. So we're in Massachusetts. A lot of my life is glass, so it's hard not to talk about that. I have interests. Yeah, I mean, look, family, basically stuff around the house. I'm always tinkering with something. I don't really have like an off switch, so I kind of am always working on something. We like the garden, stuff like that. Cooking, a lot of cooking around the house.
What about your syrup?
Maple syrup? Oh, yeah, that's an obvious one to talk about, obviously. Look, I had all these answers ready, and I guess now I'm nervous. So there's that. Maple syrup, that's a great answer. It's maple season right now, so we're boiling out there. We'll be boiling all day, actually. So
always busy. All right. Yeah. So tell us, how did you even start doing glass?
So, I mean, this is a question I've been asked, everybody who's in glass gets asked this question constantly. And my answer has evolved over the last decade and a half. I have my short version and my long version. My short version is I just made a bunch of selfish decisions in my 20s and now I kind of own them. My longer version is, it depends on how much time you have, really. But, it was always something I thought was nice. It was always something I wanted to do. And then just a series of weird events, I ended up here.
Are you more self-taught or did you learn from someone?
I mean, I've certainly taken classes. But I mean, for the most part, I think you could say self-taught. I mean, I've worked with a bunch of people. Like I said, I've been out there taking classes. The first few years were definitely me operating in a vacuum, kind of making a complete mess. And then, it's hard not to get better at something when you just stick with it for 15 years, give or take.
For the people that don't know you, can you describe your style of work? And I guess to make it a little bit easier, maybe describe your personal pursuits and then describe your business pursuits, right? Because I think that you probably keep those a little separate when it comes to your glasswork.
I mean, they're inevitably intertwined. I mean, they're more joined than you'd think, for sure. A personal pursuit is, I don't know, to come to work tomorrow is really my goal. And I just kind of have that goal every single day, and then in terms of business, it's definitely a big part of it. I think it has to be a part of it, I guess. I mean, we could sit here and have the craft, art, business conversation for sure, but ultimately, business, you have to be making good decisions. That kind of has to be part of it, I think. So that's a big part of what I do for sure.
But in terms of production pieces versus one-off high-end pieces, there's definitely a distinction between what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. The vast majority of what I do is kind of my own production, and the unique stuff kind of emerges from that. I mean, again, I just don't have an off switch. I'm just always trying to work on something. So, I know that part of this question is where do ideas come from and stuff? It's always going on. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm an exception to the rule here. I think that like a lot of glass blowers are like that, or a lot of people that maybe chase something like this, meaning like a particular path. I lay in bed and I just am shaping things in my head. You know what I mean? I know that like part of the question is kind of referencing your prep that you send out, but ultimately, like, do you draw? Do you, is it clay? Is it models? Is it whatever? And ultimately, everything just takes place in my head for me. I've always been like that through school and stuff. Like, I kind of got like a writing degree, and all my writing has always been 80% in my head, and then the last 20% of it's execution. So I think my glasswork is like very similar, and mostly it's just working on shapes, working on how to be effective, how to be efficient with stuff. Is that a good answer? That makes sense, right?
That's so good. Wait, tell us about your writing. So you have a writing degree?
No, I don't want to talk about that. Silly. That's embarrassing.
Come on.
I shouldn't have brought that up.
All right.
Well, look, I went to school. That's what I was going to do. My career path was teaching, and I finished school like 2007. I mean, my goal was to get a degree. I got a bachelor's in writing. It was like get a master's in creative writing and go get a job at a community college somewhere and teach creative writing and just kind of have a leisurely life, read and write every day. But I got the degree in like late 2007. And then obviously anybody who was paying attention in 2008, it was like very difficult to get a job. I got offered a job for like Schwan Frozen Foods, that like company that like delivers frozen. That was the only, like, of all the interviews I went on and all the stuff I did, that was the only job I actually got. And it's like, hey, no shame in that job. That's cool. But it definitely meant not using my degree. So I was like, I had been blowing glass for like 3 or 4 years at that point and was like, all right, like, I guess I'll just go full time instead. And it was like 2009, September of 2009, that I just was like, all right, I guess this is my job, and just kind of haven't looked back in 13 years or whatever. And yeah, I don't use that degree and I don't write ever. It's all glass. Let's just put a pin in that.
I think that's kind of a lie, though, because you aren't only a glass artist, you own a company. So you have employees, you have to train and teach employees, you have to manage them, you have to do the website, the customer service. So like, can you talk a little bit about all the aspects of what you do that are related to glass but aren't physically glass? And also if you found a way that you can like pass some of that stuff off as your company grows?
Pass some of that stuff off, meaning like compartmentalize the work, like give it to somebody else. Yeah, I mean, so I run Stone Tech Glass, which is kind of obviously where we're headed. That's the current kind of company that I've been working on. It's a product line, it's a brand, I think a big package. I kind of like on a good day consider that like the story I'm writing, if I could like kind of lean into that metaphor a little bit, which feels really cheesy, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Because part of it is that, right? Part of it is the social media aspect of it, the content you're creating, the messaging you're sending out there. So yeah, I mean, that's a big part of what I do. I have 6 employees, including myself, because I'm technically an employee of the company. It's 5 glass blowers. And then we have someone out back that does like a lot of the packing and shipping and stuff and a lot of the organization. And I mean, I'm trying to say this like, that doesn't make me sound, passing that stuff off is difficult because I'm a control freak for sure. But like everyone's just kind of an extension of me. Now that's not nearly as bad as it sounds. It's just that like, you can't make enough products, so you need more hands. Well, I can't grow more hands, so I hire people. There's too much out back for me to handle shipping. So I need to hire somebody to do that. You know what I mean? There's too many sales and expenses and numbers. So now I need a second brain so I can do, so then you just hire somebody to be that second brain. And yeah, I'm a bit of a control freak. So passing that stuff off is super hard. But like what I will say is one decision I made early was that, we talk about fingertips a lot here because, it all takes place at the fingertips there. You really need to feel everything. You could almost blow glass blind, like you should be able to feel what's happening in the torch. And no 2 sets of fingertips are alike. So it's impossible, as much as I teach these guys and as much as I try and push them this way and that way and kind of nudge them. One of the decisions I made early was that, like, look, I'm never going to get them to do exactly what I do. So I needed to create a situation where they had the freedom to, kind of hit them, like we kind of use a musical metaphor where they kind of hit the important notes, but then the fills, like the solos on the way to those important notes, are free to them. So I think that, like, I tried as best I can to give them ownership over certain pieces in the product line. I kind of handled the design, and I said, look, this is what it should look like, but you do you. Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up. Ultimately, it was hard to pass stuff on, but you have to, like, do it if you want to do this, and you have to give people the freedom to kind of do, play to their strengths. That's one of the biggest challenges, is figuring out, like, how people learn and where their strengths and weaknesses are, and managing several different people who have several different strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's
How do you get into the headspace of going into your workspace?
I think the bigger question for me is, how do I get out of the headspace? Like, how do I go home and turn it off?
Okay, so how do you turn it off?
I don't, is the short answer. I don't. I kind of hate to admit it, because the phone, right? We could have this long conversation about the phone and how obnoxious and addicting it is, and the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons of social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I take some pride in the fact that my only real social media presence is, like, kind of the business stuff. So, but it's like, is that just a lie I'm telling myself, or I can just justify constant phone usage because it's like, well, I'm working right now, so it counts. I should probably turn it off more than I do, but I really feel like I get a lot of, like, thanks for responding so quickly. And I think that, like, whether that's a wholesale customer or, an end user, I think that's important. I hate sending a message to a company and not hearing back for a long, feeling like you're in the dark on something. So, like I said, as a general rule, I don't turn it off. I got a couple of kiddos, and when I'm with them, I try real hard to put the phone away, because I don't want them to learn that message. But, I'm guilty of, like, certainly being on my phone at home, running the business, as it were. Look, I mean, I can shut it off. I can shut it off. I'm cool. I spend quality time with the kids. My daughter and I have started going for a walk every morning. We go out and exercise, and she's getting a kick out of it. And it's like, it's a lot of fun. I don't bring my phone there, but it's hard to turn it off. I want to be successful. I want this to work. I have all these people that are also want it to work for us. So it's hard to, like, just not say yes to things.
Do you plan your days out? Like, I know that you're a control freak and you've probably got a million different projects going. Do you plan your days out? Like, you wake up in the morning, you're like, all right, I'm going to walk with my daughter, and then I'm going to get this and this done. Or do you just kind of play it as it goes, or see how you're feeling? Like, are there days where you're like, all right, I'm going to take it easy and not really get anything done? Or
I'll bail on something at the last minute for sure, but I can't not know what I'm doing. I know that a lot of people, like, and look, nothing but respect for people that can be inspired by a moment and go do something. But I don't plan my days out. I plan my quarters out, So, like, I kind of knew what all 6 of us would be doing every day. And even that, we pretty much have 2022 planned out. Now, look, you have to free yourself to go with the flow, because nothing's ever going to work out the way you want it to. But I have one of those big calendars, the desktop calendars, and I have everybody assigned for kind of like what we're going to be doing this whole quarter. So I could not function without having a plan, without knowing what I'm up to. I couldn't come and just stand at the torch and start freestyling. That's not in my nature. I would freeze. I would just stand there and have no idea. Like, I need to have, and yes, new ideas come. I'm at home, I think of a new shape, and I come in the morning and I change my day around and work on that new shape, or, whatever. That's just a hypothetical, but ultimately I could not show up without a plan. Like, I don't function well without a game plan. In terms of routine, like, the walk with the daughter is brand new, but it's definitely, I think she thrives. I mean, she's only 2, but I think she functions very well in routine. She's constantly asking questions about, what we're going to do and what's next and what, what I mean? So I think she's a bit of a planner like I am. It's a little early, but I think she is. So, we're definitely in a routine. I like to get up and my coffee and my, what I mean? I definitely am a little regimented. I mean, I'm not super strict. I'm not like a crazy person. I could be way more disciplined for sure. I mean, look, I blow glass for a living. It's not super disciplined. Like maybe I'm one of the more disciplined glass blowers, but that's like, I'm not sure that says much.
Do you have trouble switching gears? Like, all right, I'm gonna figure out what everyone's gonna do today, and then I'm gonna, do my social media, and I'm gonna like check my email and my phone and everything. Like, do you have trouble going from like one project to another, or does it just kind of flow seamlessly for you?
It kind of flows seamlessly, mostly because I am a creature of habit. So, I mean, I'm like, I think Stone Tech needs to be posting every day. I know I want to be fresh. I mean, I try and like create a batch of content and then have it. And it's about 9 o'clock every morning. You know what I mean? And then, in terms of emails, it's important to respond to them. I put my hours in on the torch and I tend not to be engaged with emails during that. But once that's over, I mean, you got to follow up and check. But that's also part of what happens out back here is that emails get answered without me. And I'm just kind of like surveying it. You know what I mean? I'll just read what the response was. And so I'm kind of in the loop on it, but I don't necessarily have to be responsible for it. Like I'm reading everything, I'm paying attention. And if I see something that I wish had gone a different way, I can nudge it or jump in when I need to. But yeah, ultimately, I would say that I'm a pattern. I'm blanking on the word here, but ultimately, I'm a creature of habit. I just have routine. Routine is the word I'm looking for. I have a routine. It happens every day. It evolves. It changes. The routine is in itself is a living entity. It'll evolve, but I need something. I need some sort of structure for sure.
How do you go about creating a standardized product that 6 other people are also creating?
Well, look, I'll give you an answer. I think like 3 years ago, me would have not answered that question because I got to protect my trade secrets, but ultimately, it starts with consistent prep, right? So, we kind of break things up and different people with different skill sets have different jobs. So if your prep is consistent as it can be, you're going to, you set yourself up. Boy, I want to go down like 10 rabbit holes right now, but I'm going to try real hard to stay on topic. I think you just try and set yourself up for success. This is like, I'm allowing myself to do this. I got into backgammon like several years ago and I learned like a lot of lessons from backgammon because it's like kind of about setting yourself up for success. Like, just leaving yourself in a position where multiple moves help you. And I know that may seem like way off topic, but it's kind of how I try and run the business here. So look, you just start with consistent prep and you just drill that into somebody who's just learning. Like, this is how prep's made. This is what it should look like. You understand that they're going to be terrible at it for a while and you try and like, no, I mean, honestly, I try and tell them, like, we try and use very open language here. Like, oh, you suck at this. It's fine. Just because like you have to get past that, right? You just have to like accept it. Like, of course you're not going to. If I started playing piano tomorrow, I'd be terrible at it. And the only way you're going to get better is by sticking with it. And so then they get better. You have consistent prep. And then what I tried to do, the decision I made a few years ago, was to give ownership of individual products so that we have like 30 something different shapes we make. And each glassblower out there figuratively owns whatever, 6 to 10 shapes. So the same person is making the same product, kind of on a loop. So that individual product, again, I even tell them, like, I even say, like, look, if you want to make a change, like, here's the product. And here are the important, this needs to be big and this needs to be small and this needs to be here and this needs to be there. So they get the overall picture. I said, now you try and make one. And I say, all right, look, I would have done it like this, I think you're missing this important piece of it, et cetera, et cetera. But then from there, I just tell them, like, look, if you want to make a change it. All that I ask is that they have to be consistent, right? Because we have to, if I get kind of businessy, it's like you have to meet customer expectations. That has to be part. When we post one picture online and somebody buys it, they're not buying that unit, right? Because it's not a one-off piece. They're buying a very similar piece. And so they're going to expect it to look similar. And so as long as they understand that, which they do. I mean, they're great. The crew is amazing, and they're all super talented glassblowers. I love them all. But I think one of the ways I controlled it was like, not everybody makes everything. That's a bit chaotic. You own these 10 products, and you're essentially going to make them on a loop. And if you can handle that, and you like that, and you like the the workload, then great, here we go, I've got work. So I think I think that about answers the question. Ultimately, give them ownership over the piece and it will become consistent by its very nature.
Okay, so I have a question. All right, you invest so much into your employees, right? Like you invest so much time and thought and like really expensive skill sets into people.
Yeah.
How do you, I know that it's a struggle first, just like finding those people that are worth it, but like, isn't it so exhausting? And you also have to place a certain amount of like trust into people that like you're dedicating like your time and your skill into somebody, and that you hope that they're going to like stick around and like remain like wonderful to you, right? Like, can you speak to that at all?
Well, I mean, look, you're 100% right. That's a very big and very scary part of it. I mean, I think whether you're out there making one-off headies or whether you're doing something like this or whether you're not blowing glass, you're doing something else, right? The conversation we're having is risk. I mean, we're all out here taking risks. No matter what you do, risk is part of it. So at some point you have to have the confidence to take that risk. I think you have to keep employees happy. I think ultimately it's a high skilled trade. It's a very high skilled trade. So you have to invest a lot of effort into the crew. That's kind of just comes with the territory. If you can't handle that, then maybe you should find something that's a little more low skill and that you could churn through people faster. That's not where I am. It's not the decisions I made in my 20s that I own now. You know what I mean? It's glassblowing. It's hard. So it's my job every day to incentivize people to stay, for sure. I'm also like pretty open about it. Like I try, right or wrong. I mean, I hope they don't care, but I tell them flat out, like, look, welcome to the umbrella of the company. Like you're protected because of these things. Specifically, like the company will take on the ebb and flow of cash, whereas you'll get the steady paycheck. So I think that's a bonus. That's a plus. That's an advantage. Also, like when you're learning something new, yeah, I mean, like it's expensive to stand there and teach somebody, for sure. Education is expensive. That's one of my big phrases, for sure. So that's something that I say to people, but it's also something I just remind myself. They're learning, I'm learning, and education is expensive no matter how you cut it. So you just hope that, like, it's all investing, it's all risk, it's all like, you just hope that risk pays off. And so far I've been pretty lucky. I try and like make the environment fun and happy and people have a good time here. I try and tell them that exactly that, like, look, you're not good at this. You're going to make some bad ones. If you were on your own and you made some bad ones, you might never get paid on them. Here, you'll get paid on them. And then all I ask is, when you're good at them, can you make me a bunch of them so I can make some money, please? But like, look, that's what I try for. It's, I don't know. It's working, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'll let you know in like 30, 40 years how it went. Hopefully I'm still around in 30, 40 years. So like, I just think it's one of those things where I'm just scared every day. And then you just look back in the end and like, oh, geez, I can't believe that worked. Like, sweet, but look, that's all part of it. It's the risk I took. It's the risk we're all, but like they're risking by like investing in me at the same time. And then like, I don't know, there's I'm trying to debate whether I should reference this book or not, but there's a book that I read. There's a guy that I like, and, he wrote a book, and he basically, the lesson in the book was, free yourself to just hire important people and take that risk. And so I was like, all right, well, this book seems reasonable. I'll just do what that says. I don't know.
It's the law of attraction, right? Like give it out and it'll have to come back.
Yeah, I'm hoping, for sure. I mean, that's part of it. Look, it's working, and these guys are great. I think they're happy here. You'd have to interview those guys. I don't know. They haven't stormed out yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and say we're doing all right. Look, we take it seriously. Like, it's not everyone's built for what we do. Not everyone's built for glassblowing. Not everyone's built for high skill. Not everyone's built for headies. Not everyone's built for production. In terms of finding people, shit, I don't know. Like, that's the hardest part. I'm just lucky to have found some people. It takes a while. It takes several people come and go, and then you find the good ones, and you realize, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to think I'm getting better at identifying the good ones, for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, just try and make them happy, and I think it works. Or it'll all be over tomorrow. I don't know.
So anxiety and depression are like big parts of Christina and I's lives. So we like to ask other people if that plays a part in your life at all, or if it has in the past, and like any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think anxiety goes pretty much hand in hand with my job. I live in a constant world of fear for sure. But I mean, the thing about it for me, at least, is the anxiety and fear that I experience, I would argue is pretty good, pretty high, but like healthy. Like I never get like, I've been in environments where you get that like kind of pit of your stomach anxiety, that stuff that like doesn't feel good. I don't know how to say this without sounding weird, but just the anxiety that I feel lately is somewhat nourishing. I'm not really sure but it's like it feels like a food. It like honestly like drives me to do the next thing. Like it just feels very healthy. Like I think that like anxiety can be a loaded word, right? And it can be difficult to deal with. But the type of anxiety that I have running this business so far has been a net positive. It's what motivates me to get out there and make it happen for everybody.
That makes sense. Like you're taking big calculated risks. So you obviously have anxiety over that, but it's calculated and it's thought through. So
look, I'd like to think they're calculated and thought through. I'd love to accept that as a compliment, and I'd love to say that in the world. But once again, give me a year, give me 20 years. Let's see how this all turns out.
A calendar and a plan and a schedule, like that's one up for a lot of people.
I think there's just no guarantee that works. I think some people that don't live on the calendar are envious of that. It's like, oh, you've got it all together. No, I mean, this is chaos here. It's day after day chaos. But look, you got to adapt. You got to know that's part of it. And I like that. That's the puzzle solving part of it for me, is like, having plan A, B, C, D, and then realizing that all four of those are terrible plans and you have to figure out a fifth plan immediately. And it's like, all right, boom, like what's next? Let me figure that out. And those moments are like really what I thrive on, is those brief moments in time where you solve a puzzle and figure out like, oh geez, I just had this idea and it just fixes this, and this. That's mostly what my glassblowing career is just jumping between those moments of like catching lightning in a bottle and just hoping that you can do it again.
So there's always something wrong, but you just work through it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful in this, because I always describe it as like putting out fires, but like with the amount of fire we use, you have to really stress that there are figurative fires that we put out, not literal fires. But I mean, look, most of my job, I mean, I put several hours on the torch still. I'm a big part of the production here, but a lot of my job is putting out figurative fires. But I love it. I love that challenge. That's I get a real thrill out of that. I think that's a really good time.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on how you priced your work, because I think that you probably have most of it calculated out, right? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Can you just speak on that a little bit? It's just interesting on how, like, the time that it takes to develop it. Do you consider that into the future pricing, or?
Yes, sure. I think people might mostly hate this answer, but I mean, it's a formula. I think it has to be. I think you can have art in there in terms of like your formula, and like those are all legitimate pieces of the formula, but track data is my answer. Just track everything. And then I have over the last several years sat down yearly, quarterly, monthly, and just analyze the data. So I have a pretty good grasp over what every blank costs me. And then that blank gets turned into, the 30 something products or shapes or whatever. And it's a function of how long those take. So, the answer is it's a formula. And then my formula spits out a number, and that number is the price. Like it has to be, otherwise the machine doesn't work. And so what I am very fortunate as of late to be able to do is to say that, look, this is what my formula spit out. This is what I'm selling them for. If the market doesn't want them at that price, if my wholesale accounts, my distributors, my end users don't want it at that price, regardless of how much they want the product, I'm not going to make it. Like, I just can't make it if it doesn't fit the formula. So that's an advantage, I guess. I mean, the short answer is math. I mean, I just think it has to be. In terms of development, this year, in order to look, I try and listen to the guys, and I think some of the feedback that I've got is that they want personal development. They want to get better at, they each have their own list of things they want to get better at. And so I have scheduled in, as obnoxious as this is sounding, I'm realizing, but I have scheduled in fun time, right? So that we have X amount of days per quarter where the stresses or the responsibility of hitting a number or whatever is not there. And they can tell me what project they want to work on, whether that's like, oh, I want to work on this time and this next time, or collectively over the year, I'd like to get better at this one thing. Then I just kind of figure out like, all right, well, we're going to have this many days set aside per quarter to do that. And I try and think of a lesson plan to get them from A to B so that, we tend to do fun Fridays. So it's not every Friday, but those are our days that we carve out for that. And I just try and remind them, to speak to these guys, they get frustrated personally when they're not performing well hourly, and I take that as a compliment because they care about the company, but I try and remind them that it's in there, right? So in one sense, the cost of R&D is built into the rest of the pricing so that we kind of have, you have to grow, right? You have to change, you have to evolve. I have to keep them happy. We just talked about that. So in order to develop new products, there has to be time. You know what I mean? I think so one thing I heard, this is just a story from a long time ago that I think is super interesting. I think it applies. This might just be a ramble, but like, look, if you like this pendant and you make a pendant, right? And it's nice and you make 50 of them, right? And you do some math and you say that like, all right, well, I need $500. I'm just trying to make the math easy. Make $500 to pay for what just happened, gases, materials, time, etc. Well, you have two options. You can sell all 50 pendants for $10 a piece. And then some of them are probably worth more than $10. Some of them are probably worth less than $10, but you can kind of recoup. Or you could take the nicest one out of there and, throw away 49 of them and sell the nice one for $500. I think that maybe that's the difference between like high end and production, right? Is that like a sensible answer, right? That makes sense.
Definitely.
So
does.
in that way, yeah, like the development is built into it, right? That the one way or another, you're going to get better over those 50 pendants, right? So that's all R&D, that's all development, that's all skill set, that's all learning, that's all building. And no matter which approach you take, I think, it's priced in, right?
Do you have any advice for people trying to figure out how to create a business plan?
No, but I'm taking advice if somebody wants to help me. I don't know. It's that old adage of like people go to business school for 4 years or 8 if they're getting advanced degrees and then learn more in their first year than they, ever have in the 8 years of school, whatever. I think ultimately I've just failed before. I know it's a cliche, but like I've made mistakes and then you just like, you kind of see the mistakes happen. You go, oh, so that was a terrible idea that just got by me, and you learn and you start again. I'm on my like kind of third company here. And look, I think to kind of loop back a little bit, like giving ownership is something that I haven't always done. I've ran production companies where just everybody made everything. And when I look back on it, it was like, oh, we lacked consistency. I try and pay a good wage and keep people happy making their products. And I hope that they take pride in the products they own. So like, that's just a small example of a thing, business plan. Like, I don't know because I don't know. Talk to people smarter than you. I'm just very fortunate to have people smarter than me around me. I've always, other than a very brief 8-month period of time where I worked for Circuit City, which is a silly sentence, but I've always worked for people. I've always worked for like, the guy above me was the owner of the company. You know what I mean? Like I've always kind of been in that, like, so I've just kind of seen it. I've learned from them. And it just kind of was, I think, the direction I was always kind of headed in. So work for some people, watch it happen. I don't know, pay attention. I've maintained these relationships, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at. So I can still call these people on the phone like daily if I need to, and commiserate or celebrate or tell them the situation. Say, what do I do? And well, I would do this, I would do that. I'm very fortunate to have consistently two very important people in my life. I think mentors was kind of one of your question there. I have two specific people in my life that I dump on pretty aggressively, which is maybe fair or not fair, but but I mean, they seem to be willing to listen to me. I think I might have to look, ultimately talk to people smarter than you and read books by people that are smarter than you and keep track of every single thing you do, everything. Your time is it. I mean, time is everything. I think I value time more than money personally. You know what I mean? So just monitor your time and see what you're out there doing, materials, and that stuff's important too. All your costs. Keep track of it. Figure out a price. Try and sell it. If it's not selling, you got a problem.
You just
If
had
you're
so
selling too
much
much of
good
it.
advice.
No,
I mean, I
so
think,
good.
I don't know. Is that good
No.
advice? I don't know.
Now I'm like, wow, now we're just gonna ask him for a conclusion, and he just gave us a perfect conclusion. But now we need another one.
Well, you want me to double wrap this up? I don't have a good answer. Look, I mean, I feel
No,
like
we
I
need
feel
some
like I
words
was
of
just talking.
advice. You got to leave them with some fancy wisdom.
I don't know if that's fancy or incredibly boring. I mean, look, I get a kick out of boring, so that's a thing for me. I worry that like a lot of maybe this industry is looking for a little more excitement than I can offer. But I mean, ultimately, regardless of what you're making, I think I'm just going to repeat myself as what's happening. But it's boring, but track everything and
Keep moving forward. I think
yeah, I mean,
that
that
was
needs to be
important.
part
Like,
of it.
schedule your play days. Yes.
Yeah, if you can handle that, I mean, know yourself, right? Like just know what you need out of life. And then again, I mean, make a plan, execute it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Be willing to like change. I mean, like I said, I have a calendar out there with everybody's days on it. But okay, ready? So maybe this is profound. I have a desktop calendar out there with everybody's day on it, but it's written in pencil. Right? So I mean, I erase it and I change it. That's it. And in the meantime, track everything. The more you know about your business, the better you're going to be.
So good.
Find some people that are smarter than you. I just try and talk to people smarter than me.
Surround yourself with good people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no,
thank
this is
you.
fun. I could talk about this all day long. I mean,
Yeah.
I love it. I love glass. I love the business part of it. You know, it's super fun. It's a big project.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of
Glad
it.
you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
That's
far,
what's
today we're
important.
doing all right. You know what I mean? Like I said,
Tomorrow
let's
might be
do this again in
crying,
20
but-
years, and I'll let you know if I was as smart as I think I am, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a nice rest of your day.
Yeah,
Say
Yeah,
hi
you
to
too.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Connected in Glass. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more information on the artists we interview and for updates on the podcast.